The evening siren wailed across Salvage Zone 7, marking the end of another workday. Most scrap workers hurried to the exit gates, pulling off their protective masks and gloves. But June remained, his eyes fixed on his scanner's unusual reading. 5 more minutes, he muttered to himself. The junkyard stretched for miles, endless mountains of discarded ship parts and alien tech dumped by passing starships. Earth had become a convenient trash stop since joining the Galactic Confederation 20 years ago. June wiped sweat from his forehead. Unlike his co-workers, he worked without a full protective suit. He had always been different that way. While others broke out in rashes or struggled to breathe around alien materials, June never had such problems. His supervisor called it a lucky mutation. The scanner beeped again. The heat signature was stronger now. June climbed over a pile of twisted metal, his boots sliding on loose scraps. The moons were rising, casting double shadows across the junkyard. The night shift guards wouldn't start their rounds for another 30 minutes. He had time. A fresh dump had arrived that morning, mostly from a large cargo ship that had stopped for repairs at the orbital station. June had watched the containers fall from the sky, guided by descent thrusters to land in Lot 23. That's where his scanner was pointing now. He reached the edge of the new pile and checked his readings again. Whatever was giving off heat was buried under several feet of debris. June began to dig, moving aside bent panels and tangles of wire. His hands worked quickly, driven by curiosity more than anything else. Finding valuable tech could mean bonus. Credits in June's small apartment rent was due soon. 20 minutes later, his fingers touched something smooth and warm. Not metal, not plastic. Something that felt alive. June dug faster, clearing away the last of the debris. What he uncovered made him fall backward in shock. A girl, or at least, something girl-shaped. She was curled into a tight ball, her body covered in iridescent scales that shifted from blue to purple in the moonlight. Small horns curled from her forehead, and what looked like folded wings pressed flat against her back. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow and pained. June had seen many alien species since Earth joined the Confederation. Tall, short, tentacled, furred. But nothing like her. He pulled out his information tablet and scanned her carefully. Die. Screen flashed with information. Species Ryong. Status endangered. Approach protocol. Contact Confederation authorities immediately. Below the warning was more information. The Ryong were a rare draconic species from the outer galaxy sectors. Their homeworld had been destroyed in a stellar event 30 years ago. Few had been seen since. June looked again at the alien girl. Her scales were dull in places, flaking off to reveal raw skin beneath. She was starving, he realized. And injured too. Dark fluid that must be her blood had dried along her side. He reached for his communicator, then stopped. Confederation protocol was clear about unauthorized aliens. She would be taken to a holding facility, questioned, probably examined by scientists eager to study a rare specimen. June had heard stories about what happened to unusual aliens in those places. The girl's eyes suddenly opened. They were large and golden with vertical pupils that widened in fear when she saw him. She tried to move away but was too weak. A small sound escaped her throat, a whimper of pain and fear. "I won't hurt you," June said softly, holding up empty hands to show he meant no harm. She replied in a language his translator couldn't catch, a series of soft clicks and humming sounds. Then she switched to broken standard galactic. "Please. No take. No lab." June felt something twist in his chest. She understood what would happen if he reported her. She was intelligent, afraid, and alone. "When did you last eat?" he asked. She didn't seem to understand the question, but pointed weakly at her mouth and held up 4 fingers. 4 days? June guessed. She shook her head and held up 4 fingers again, then pointed at the larger of the 2 moons. 4 cycles? 4 weeks? June was horrified. "You haven't eaten in 4 weeks?" She nodded weakly. The decision came to June without conscious thought. He took off his work jacket and carefully wrapped it around her thin shoulders. I'm going to help you, he said clearly. Food, medicine, safe place. He pointed to himself. June. The dragon girl looked at him for a long moment, as if judging whether to trust him. Finally, she placed a scaled hand against her chest. Ara, she said softly. June smiled. Okay, Ara, can you walk? She tried to stand but collapsed immediately. Without hesitation, June gathered her into his arms. She weighed surprisingly little, like she was hollow-boned. The small wings on her back twitched against his arm. I need to get you past the guards, he explained, though he wasn't sure how much she understood. Stay quiet, okay? Ara nodded and curled against his chest, pulling the jacket over her distinctive features. June's heart pounded as he approached the exit checkpoint. Breaking salvage yard rules meant losing his job. Harboring an unauthorized alien could mean prison. But leaving her to die wasn't something he could do. The night guard was half asleep already, more interested in his video screen than checking workers leaving late. Staying late again, June? He called without looking up. Found something. Interesting, June replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Taking some work home. The guard waved him through without checking the bundle in his arms. Outside, the neon lights of New Seoul glowed against the night sky. June hurried to the transport station, keeping Ara hidden within his jacket. The automated bus was nearly empty this late, and no one paid attention to the thin man and his mysterious package. 20 minutes later, June carried Ara into his small apartment on the 20th floor of a crowded housing block. He gently placed her on his bed and stepped back to look at her properly in the light. Her scales gleamed faintly, beautiful despite their poor condition. Her face was almost human, with high cheekbones and large expressive eyes, but the small horns and the texture of her skin marked her as something else entirely, something not from Earth. You're safe now, June told her, hoping she understood. I'll help you get better. Ara looked around the simple apartment, then back at June. Why help? She asked in her broken standard. Danger for you. June considered the question. Why was he risking everything for an alien he just met? He finally shrugged. Because it's right, he said simply. For the first time, Ara's face relaxed into what might have been a smile. She reached out and touched his hand with her scaled fingers. A small spark jumped between them, and June felt a strange warmth spread up his arm. Thank, she whispered, before her eyes closed in exhaustion. June watched her sleeping form and wondered what he had gotten himself into. Tomorrow he would need to find food she could eat, medicine for her wounds, and a way to keep her hidden. But for tonight he had done what mattered most. He had saved her. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of June's apartment. He had spent the night on his small couch, giving up his bed for Ara. Now he stood in his tiny kitchen, staring at the open refrigerator with worry. What did dragon aliens eat? He pulled out some fruit, bread, and leftover rice. Would any of this be safe for her? He didn't know. Feeding the wrong food to an alien could make them very sick. A soft noise made him turn around. Ara stood in the doorway, his jacket still wrapped around her shoulders. She looked better after a night's rest, but her scales still appeared dull and flaky in places. Morning, June said with a smile. Hungry? Ara nodded, her golden eyes fixed on the food in his hands. She approached slowly and sniffed at each item. After careful examination, she pointed to the fruit. June handed her an apple. She turned it in her scaled hands before taking a small bite. Her face lit up and she quickly ate the rest, core and all. More? June offered another piece of fruit. Ara ate 3 more apples and some grapes before she seemed satisfied. June watched with relief. At least they had solved the food problem. Water? He asked, filling a glass from the tap. Ara drank it slowly, then looked around the apartment with curiosity. She pointed at the lights, the refrigerator, the small television in the corner. Technology, she said in her broken standard. Different from my world. Your world? June asked gently. Where is your home? Ara's expression darkened. She looked down at her hands. Gone. Star. Exploded. Long ago. June felt a pang of sadness for her. I'm sorry, he said. A sudden knock at the door made them both jump. Ara's eyes widened with fear. "Hide," June whispered, urgently, pointing to the small bathroom. Ara nodded and quickly moved out of sight. June opened the door to find Minji, his neighbor and childhood friend, standing there with a concerned expression. "You didn't answer my messages last night," she said, walking past him into the apartment. "I was worried when you didn't show up for our weekly dinner." June had completely forgotten their dinner plans. His mind had been too focused on helping Ara. "Sorry," he said. "Something came up at work." Minji studied his face. They had known each other since they were children. She could always tell when he was hiding something. "What's going on, June?" she asked. "You look tired and—" She stopped suddenly, looking at the pile of apple cores on the kitchen counter. "Since when do you eat so many apples?" Before June could answer, a crash came from the bathroom. Minji turned toward the sound. "Who's here?" she asked. June sighed. He trusted Minji. She was studying to be a doctor. Maybe she could even help. "Promise not to freak out?" he asked. Minji crossed her arms. "When have I ever freaked out?" June went to the bathroom door. "Ara," he called softly. "It's okay, she's a friend." The door opened slowly and Ara stepped out. Minji gasped, taking a step back. "What? Who is she?" Minji whispered, staring at Ara's scales, horns, and the small wings visible beneath the jacket. "Her name is Ara. She's a Ryong," June explained quickly. "I found her in the junkyard yesterday. She was dying. I couldn't leave her there." Minji approached Ara slowly, her medical training overcoming her surprise. "She's injured," she noted, seeing the wound. "On Ara's side. And malnourished. Can you help her?" June asked. Minji hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'll get my medical kit from my apartment. But June, do you realize how dangerous this is? Harboring an unregistered alien is illegal." "I know," June said. "But they would have taken her to a lab for study." She was so afraid. While Minji was gone, Ara looked at June with questioning eyes. "Friend?" she asked. "Yes," June said. "Minji is my friend. Known her since we were small. She's studying to be a doctor, a healer. She can help you." Ara nodded slowly. "Thank you. Trust hard. For me." Minji returned with her medical supplies and carefully examined Ara's wound. The dragon girl tensed, but allowed the examination. "The cut isn't deep, but it's infected," Minji reported. "Her biology seems similar enough to ours that I think standard antibiotics might work." She cleaned the wound and applied medicine, then wrapped it with a bandage. "What happened to your people?" Minji asked as she worked. Ara was quiet for a moment before answering. "Few left, scattered stars. Hunters chase us for scales." She pointed to her own iridescent body. "Valuable. Healing power." "Poachers," June translated. "They hunt her kind for their scales." Minji looked horrified. "That's awful." "Hide on ship," Ara continued. "Crew find. Hurt me. Throw away with trash." She looked at June. "Then he find." After Minji finished treating the wound, they all sat in June's small living room. Minji explained that the Ryong were thought to be extinct by most people. Their appearance in galactic records was rare. "If the authorities find out about her, they'll take her to a research facility," Minji warned. "Or worse, if these hunters learn she's here." "We'll keep her safe," June said firmly. Ara stood up suddenly and walked to June's old television that had been making static noises. Without hesitation, she placed her hand on the back panel. The static disappeared, and the picture became clear. "Fixed," she said simply. June and Minji stared in amazement. "How did you do that?" June asked. Ara touched her chest. "Ryong understand energy. Feel it. Direct it." She pointed to the lights, the refrigerator, the television. "All energy, all connected." Later that evening, after Minji had gone home with a promise to return tomorrow, the power in the building suddenly went out. The apartment was plunged into darkness as a storm raged outside. "Power failure," June said, reaching for his emergency light. But before he could find it, a soft blue glow filled the room. Ara's scales were glowing. The light pulsed gently, illuminating her body and casting enough light for them to see by. "You're glowing," June said in wonder. Ara nodded. "When needed, light from within." She walked to the wall where June's refrigerator was plugged in. Placing both hands against the outlet, she closed her eyes in concentration. The refrigerator hummed back to life, though the rest of the apartment remained dark. "Food stay cold," she explained. "Important." June laughed in amazement. "That's incredible." They sat together in the blue glow of her scales, listening to the storm outside. After a while, Ara spoke again, her standard galactic improving with each hour. "Why help me?" she asked, the question that had clearly been on her mind. Others would take scales, or report for reward. June thought about it. "Humans can be cruel sometimes," he admitted. "But we can also be kind. I saw someone who needed help, that's all." Ara reached out slowly and touched his hand. The same spark jumped between them that June had felt the night before. This time he noticed that one of her scales briefly glowed brighter where their skin met. "In old times," she said quietly, Ryong bonded with trusted friends, shared energy, shared strength. She withdrew her hand. "Very few now. Very rare to trust." June smiled at her. "Well, you can trust me. And Minji too. We'll help you get stronger and then figure out what to do next." Ara's scales glowed a bit brighter. "Maybe reason I was found. By someone kind." Outside, the storm continued. But inside June's small apartment, a fragile trust was growing. Between two beings from different worlds. Neither knew what would come next, but for now they had found safety in each other's company. 3 weeks passed quickly. Ara grew stronger each day. Her scales regained their bright color, shifting between blue and purple in the light. The wound on her side healed completely, leaving only a faint mark. She learned standard galactic rapidly, now speaking in full sentences with only occasional mistakes. June continued his work at the junkyard, bringing home small pieces of alien technology that Ara fixed with her natural abilities. They sold these repaired items at the night market through Minji, using the extra money to buy more food and supplies. Life fell into a comfortable pattern until the morning June arrived at work to find strangers in the junkyard. 5 men in black, uniforms moved through Salvage Zone 7, talking to workers and supervisors. They wore no official Confederation badges but carried themselves with authority. Private security, June guessed, noting the weapons at their hips. "What's going on?" June asked his supervisor, Hawk, as they watched the men from a distance. Hawk shrugged. "Showed up this morning, looking for something that came in 3 weeks ago, asking lots of questions." June felt his stomach tighten. 3 weeks ago, when he found Ara. "What are they looking for?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Wouldn't say exactly. Something about unusual findings in the recent shipments." Hawk lowered his voice. "But listen, these aren't Confederation officials. I checked. They're mercenaries, probably working for private collectors or worse." Throughout the day, June kept his distance from the strangers, but he couldn't avoid noticing how they questioned everyone who had been working the night he found Ara. By afternoon, he saw one of them talking to Tai, a scrap worker who had been on duty at the exit gate that night. June worked quickly, eager to leave. As soon as his shift ended, he hurried home, taking a different route than usual, constantly checking if anyone followed him. When he reached his apartment building, he knew something was wrong. The door to his unit was slightly open. June entered cautiously. The apartment had been searched. Drawers hung open, furniture moved, his few possessions scattered across the floor. "Ara," he called out, heart pounding. No answer. He checked every room, panic rising. Had they found her? Taken her? Then he heard a soft sound from above. Looking up, he saw the ceiling vent was open. "Ara?" he whispered. A scaled face appeared at the vent opening. Ara quickly climbed down, moving into June's arms with relief. "They came," she said, her voice shaking. Heard them at door. Hid in air. Path. You're safe now, June said, holding her close. But we need to leave. They might come back. As they gathered a few essential items, Ara explained more of her story. Not just any Ryong, she said, her golden eyes sad. One of last young ones. Young scales most valuable, can heal almost anything, extend life. She touched her arm where her scales glimmered. That why hunters chase so hard? How did they find you? June asked. Track ship that dumped me. Find location. She looked at him with worry. Someone told them about you, about taking something from Junkyard that night. June thought of Tay talking to the strangers, the night guard who had seen him leaving with a bundle in his arms. They couldn't stay in the apartment. It wasn't safe anymore. June called Minji, explaining the situation in hurried whispers. She told them to come to her uncle's restaurant in the old district. It had closed months ago, but the living quarters upstairs were still furnished. They left immediately, taking back streets and alleys. Night had fallen, making it easier for Ara to move without being noticed. Still, June gave her his jacket with a hood to cover her distinctive features. Minji met them at the restaurant's back door, quickly ushering them inside and up the narrow stairs to the living quarters. The space was small but clean, with a kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. You can stay here for now, she said. No one has been here since my uncle moved to the coast. The utilities still work because he pays them automatically. June thanked her, overwhelmed by her kindness. What will you do next? Minji asked. These hunters won't stop looking. June hadn't thought that far ahead. He had been focused only on getting Ara to safety. I don't know, he admitted. Ara had been examining the living space, touching the walls and appliances with her sensitive hands. Now she turned to them both. There is way, she said slowly. Old way of my people. When facing great danger. She approached June, her expression serious. Ryong can bond with compatible beings, she explained. Share energy. Make both stronger. She looked directly into his eyes. In past, only with most trusted allies, sacred gift. A bond? June asked. Like what? Connection. You feel what I feel. I feel what you feel. Your strengths become mine. My abilities become yours. She hesitated. Never done before with human. Not know if work same way. Minji looked concerned. Is it dangerous? Ara considered the question. Not dangerous like hunters, but change both forever, cannot undo. June thought about the small sparks that had jumped between them when they touched. Was that the beginning of such a bond? Why me? He asked. You different. Ara said simply. Body accepts alien things. Felt it first time you carry me. Most humans get sick near my kind. You don't. She looked down at her hands. Also, you showed kindness when others would not. Minji's phone buzzed. She checked it, her face paling. They came to my apartment, she said. Asked my parents about you. Said they just wanted to talk, but my father felt threatened. The hunters were getting closer. Soon they would check places connected to June, including Minji's family. We can't run forever, June said, making his decision. And I won't let them hurt Minji's family because of us. He turned to Ara. Tell me more about this bond. Ara explained that the process involved a small exchange of blood, allowing their energies to connect. Once bonded, they would gain strength from each other. The ritual was sacred to her people, performed only with those who had earned absolute trust. That night, as Minji returned home to avoid suspicion, June and Ara sat facing each other in the quiet apartment. Ready? She asked, her scales glowing softly in the dim light. June nodded. I trust you, Ara, and I want to help you survive. Ara took a small silver object from the pouch she carried, a ritual blade from her home world. Carefully she made a tiny cut on her palm, then an equally small one on June's hand. When their blood mingled, her scales flashed brilliantly. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a wave of sensation washed over June. Warmth spread up his arm, across his chest and throughout his body. He gasped as new feelings flooded. His mind, memories that weren't his, emotions both alien and familiar. Through their new connection, he sensed Ara's fear, courage, and deep gratitude. He saw flashes of her world before its destruction, crystal spires and vast skies filled with flying Ryong. He felt her pain as she watched her family captured by hunters, her desperate escape, the long, lonely journey hidden on cargo ships. The bond worked both ways. Ara's eyes widened as she received Jun's memories and feelings. His childhood with Minji, his parents who had died in an accident years ago, his loneliness until he found her. When the initial rush faded, they stared at each other with new understanding. The connection remained humming between them like a quiet song. It worked. Ara whispered in perfect standard now, the language flowing directly from Jun's knowledge. Jun looked down at his arms, surprised to see faint scale patterns forming under his skin. They glowed softly with the same light as Ara's. Scales. We are bonded now, she said. Together, we face hunters. Jun nodded, feeling stronger and more aware than ever before. Together, he agreed. Jun woke to a world that felt entirely new. The morning sunlight seemed brighter, colors more vivid. He could hear the faint hum of electricity in the walls and feel the vibrations of traffic on the street below. These new sensations flowed through the bond he now shared with Ara. He looked at his arms in the daylight. The scale patterns had become more defined overnight, small patches of iridescent blue forming along his forearms. When he touched them, they felt smooth and warm. Ara sat by the window watching the city. Through their bond, Jun sensed her mixture of wonder and caution as she observed human life below. "How do you feel?" she asked without turning. "Different," Jun replied. "I can sense things I never noticed before, energy patterns, vibrations." He joined her at the window. "And I can feel your emotions too." Ara nodded. "The bond grows stronger each hour. Your body accepts the changes well." She touched his arm where the scales were forming. "This is rare. Most bonds do not create physical changes so quickly." Jun had many questions about what was happening to him, but they were interrupted by a call from Minji. "The men came back to my apartment," she said, her voice tense. "They're asking more questions about you. They know you haven't been at work for 2 days. My parents are worried." Jun felt a surge of guilt. His friendship with Minji was putting her family in danger. "I'm sorry," he said. "We need to stop these hunters before they hurt anyone else." After ending the call, he turned to Ara. "We need a plan. We can't keep hiding." Ara closed her eyes, thinking. "The bond gives us strength, but we are still just 2 against many." Her eyes suddenly opened wide. "But maybe not alone. Maybe others could help." "What do you mean?" Jun asked. "My people," she said. "The scattered survivors. If we could signal them." The idea took shape quickly. Ara explained that the Ryong had ancient methods of communication, energy patterns that could travel vast distances through space. With the right equipment, they might be able to create a beacon strong enough to reach any Ryong in the nearby systems. "Where would we get such equipment?" Jun asked. Ara smiled. "The junkyard, many ship parts there. I could reshape them with my abilities, more powerful now with our bond." It was risky, but it gave them a purpose. They needed to return to Salvage Zone 7, where they might find the components for a beacon, but it was also the place where the hunters would likely be watching. As they prepared to leave their hiding place, Jun discovered another effect of the bond. When he reached for a cup, it slipped from his hand, but his reflexes were suddenly much faster. He caught it before it hit the ground, moving with a speed he had never possessed before. "My abilities become yours," Ara reminded him. Ryong move quickly when needed. They waited until nightfall before leaving the restaurant. Minji came to escort them part way, bringing supplies and news. "The men have been questioning everyone at the junkyard," she told them. "Their leader is named Dal. He's offering rewards for information about a rare specimen that went missing. They know your name now, Jun," This was worse than they had thought. The hunters weren't just looking. They were closing in. Be careful, Minji said as they parted ways near the junkyard's outer fence. I've contacted some friends from the medical center. There's a network of people who help refugee aliens. If you need emergency extraction, call this number. She handed June a small communication device. Thank you, June said, hugging her. For everything. Just come back alive, she replied. Both of you. Using June's worker access code, they entered Salvage Zone 7 through a side gate. The night shift was minimal, with only a few guards patrolling the vast area. With Ara's enhanced senses and June's knowledge of the guard patterns, they moved, undetected toward the section where fresh ship parts were stored. Through their bond, they worked in perfect harmony. June would locate the parts and Ara would determine if they were useful. Her hands moved across odd-shaped devices and components, sensing the energy patterns within them. This one, she whispered, holding up a curved piece of metal with crystal inlays. And this. She picked up a small power cell that still glowed faintly. Need more? Something to amplify the signal? They collected components for over an hour, storing them in a bag Minji had provided. June was amazed at how easily they avoided the guards. He could now sense their approach before seeing them, feeling their energy signatures through the bond. Ara suddenly tensed. Someone comes, not guard. June focused on the sensation she was sharing. Yes, a different energy pattern, more purposeful. Armed, they ducked behind a mountain of scrap as a figure moved through the shadows. Even in the darkness, June recognized the black uniform. One of the hunters. They're patrolling here now, he whispered. They waited until the hunter moved past before continuing their search. They needed one final component, a transmission array. There, Ara pointed to a pile of debris from a luxury yacht. Perfect. Peace. As June reached for it, a bright light suddenly illuminated them from behind. Don't move, a cold voice ordered. They turned slowly to face a tall man with a cruel face and a laser pistol pointed at them. Behind him stood two more hunters, with weapons ready. So, the man said, this is where our valuable specimen has been hiding. His eyes moved between Ara and June, noticing the scales on June's arms. Interesting. A human Ryong bond. That makes you valuable too, boy. This had to be Dal, the leader Minji had mentioned. We are not your property, June said firmly, stepping slightly in front of Ara. Dal laughed. Everything has a price. The last juvenile Ryong female will fetch a fortune from the right buyer, and you, a successfully bonded human, will make an interesting bonus. June felt Ara's fear through their bond, but also her determination. She had been running for too long. They both had to stand their ground now. What do we do? June asked. Through their mental connection, a new ability they had discovered earlier that day. Distract them, Ara replied silently. I need to touch that power relay behind them. June understood immediately. The large power relay supplied electricity to this section of the junkyard. With Ara's abilities, she could use it to create a power surge. Why hunt the Ryong? June asked Dal loudly, taking a small step to the side. Their scales only work if freely given. Everyone knows that. Dal's eyes narrowed. Is that what she told you? Convenient myth. Their scales work perfectly. Well, when harvested properly, the younger the specimen, the more potent the effect. While Dal spoke, June sensed Ara gathering her energy. The scales on his arms began to glow faintly in response to hers. Now! Ara commanded through their bond. June dropped to the ground as Ara released a pulse of energy toward the power relay. It exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging the area into darkness. In the confusion they ran. Shouts and weapons fire erupted behind them. June felt a burning graze on his shoulder as a laser bolt narrowly missed him. Through the bond he borrowed Ara's night vision, seeing the path ahead clearly despite the darkness. They reached the fence at the far end of the junkyard, the bag of components clutched tightly in June's hand. The hunters were close behind. Climb, Ara urged. As they scaled the fence, June felt a surge of energy from Ara flowing into him. His muscles responded with inhuman strength, pulling them both up and over the barrier in seconds. They ran through the night streets, using their bond to sense if they were being followed. Eventually, they reached an abandoned warehouse district. "We need to build the beacon quickly," Ara said, breathing hard. "They will find us soon." Inside an empty building, they laid out the components they had gathered. Ara's hands worked with incredible speed, reshaping metal and crystal, connecting the power cells. June helped, guided by her knowledge flowing through their bond. As they worked, the bond between them deepened. June began to understand the complex energy patterns that formed the basis of Ryong technology. Ara gained access to his human perspective, helping her adapt the components more effectively. "It's ready," she said finally, holding up a device that pulsed with soft blue light. "Will it reach your people?" June asked. Ara looked at him with determination. "Not alone, but together. Through our bond, the signal will be strong enough." They placed their hands on the beacon. As one, they focused their shared energy into the device. The blue light grew brighter, then shot upward in a beam that passed through the roof and into the night sky. "Now we wait," Ara said softly. June nodded, feeling both hope and fear through their connection. "How long?" "If any Ryong are in this system, they will come," she replied. "If not," she didn't need to finish. "If no one came, the hunters would eventually find them." June put his arm around her shoulders. "Then we face whatever comes together." Through their bond, they shared strength and comfort as the beacon continued to pulse, sending its silent call into the stars above. Dawn broke over the abandoned warehouse district. June and Ara had taken turns watching for hunters while the beacon continued to pulse its signal into space. Through their bond, both felt the growing exhaustion in each other's bodies. "Anything?" June asked, looking up at the morning sky. Ara shook her head. "No response yet. Signal still sending." The small device they had built glowed with steady blue light, drawing power from both their connected energies. Maintaining it was draining them, but they had no choice but to continue. June checked his communication device. 3 missed calls. From Minji. He called her back immediately. "Where are you?" she asked when she answered. "The hunters raided my parents' home last night. They're searching everywhere." "We're in the old warehouse district," June told her. "We built a beacon to call for help from other Ryong, but we don't know if anyone will come." "Stay there," Minji said firmly. "I've contacted that underground network I told you about. They want to help. They've dealt with these private hunters before." "It's too dangerous," June protested. "These men are armed." "So are my new friends," Minji replied. "Just hold on. I'm sending you their location signal. If you need to run, go to them." After ending the call, June shared the information with Ara through their bond. She received not just his words but the emotions behind them. Concern for Minji, hope for help, and fear of putting more people in danger. "Your friend is brave," Ara said. "Like you." Suddenly, she stiffened, her golden eyes widening. "June, feel that?" He focused on the sensation coming through their bond. A faint vibration, not from Earth, but from above. Something was entering the atmosphere. "Is it your people?" he asked, hope rising. Ara's face fell. "No. Wrong energy pattern. A small ship. Hunters." They gathered their few belongings quickly, preparing to run. But before they could leave the warehouse, they heard vehicles approaching outside. Through a dirty window, they saw 3 black transport vehicles surrounding the building. Armed men in the familiar black uniforms took positions around all exits. "They found us," June said. "How?" "The beacon," Ara realized. "They must have devices to track energy signatures. They were trapped." June sent the location signal Minji had provided to her network friends, but he knew help might not arrive in time. The warehouse doors burst open. Dal entered with 6 armed hunters behind him. His cruel smile showed he knew he had won. "Impressive technology," he said, pointing to their beacon. "Made it easier to find you. Now come quietly and perhaps I won't punish you too severely for the trouble you've caused. June stepped in front of Ara. We're not going anywhere with you. The scales on his arms glowed brightly now, matching the light from Ara's body. Through their bond, they shared strength, preparing to fight despite the overwhelming odds. Dal sighed. Always the hard way. He nodded to his men, who raised their weapons. Before anyone could fire, the ground beneath them trembled. A low, deep hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. The hunters looked around in confusion. What is that? Dal demanded as dust fell from the warehouse ceiling. Ara's face lit up with joy. It worked, she said to June through their bond. Someone heard. The entire building shook now. The hunters stumbled, trying to keep their balance. The hum became a roar as a shadow passed over the broken skylights above. Ship! One of the hunters shouted, pointing upward. The roof of the warehouse suddenly peeled back like the lid of a can. Sunlight poured in along with the downwash from a massive vessel. Hovering directly above them, it was unlike any ship June had ever seen, sleek and ancient-looking at the same time with a surface that rippled like living scales. A Ryong Guardian ship, Ara whispered in awe. I thought they were all destroyed. The hunters began firing, wildly at the ship, but their weapons had no effect on its shimmering hull. A beam of light shot down from the vessel, immobilizing two of the hunters instantly. Dal and the others scattered, taking cover behind crates and machinery. Get the specimens, Dal shouted. Don't let them escape. June grabbed Ara's hand. Come. On. They ran toward the center of the warehouse, directly under the hovering ship. More light beams lanced down, freezing hunters in place one by one. Dal emerged from behind a column, moving with desperate speed. He tackled June, sending them both crashing to the floor. The impact separated June from Ara. You cost me too much. Time and money, boy, Dal growled, pressing a blade against June's throat. Ara lunged toward them, but Dal was ready. He grabbed her arm and yanked her close, moving the blade to her throat instead. Stop the attack, he shouted up at the ship, or I cut her throat. The light beams paused. A tense silence fell over the warehouse. June felt Ara's fear through there. Bond, but also something else, a plan forming in her mind. She needed just a few more seconds of distraction. The scales only work if freely given, June said loudly, but mine have the same properties now because of our bond. He held up his arms, showing the glowing scales that had formed. Take me, instead. Let her go. Dal's eyes widened with greed and surprise. A bonded human, even more rare. His grip on Ara loosened slightly as he considered this new opportunity. It was all the opening they needed. Through their bond, June and Ara moved in perfect coordination. As June twisted away, Ara unleashed a pulse of energy that knocked Dal backward. Before the hunter could recover, a final beam of light from the ship froze him in place. A smaller craft descended from the larger vessel, landing in the open center of the warehouse. Its door opened to reveal a tall, elegant Ryong male with silver scales and impressive horns. He wore ceremonial armor that seemed to glow from within. I am Maru, commander of the last Guardian ship, he announced in perfect, standard galactic. We received your beacon call. His golden eyes, so like Ara's, moved between her and June with obvious surprise. A human Ryong bond? This has not been seen for 10,000 years. Ara bowed deeply. Commander, I am Ara, daughter of the Northern Clutch. I believed all our ships were destroyed. Nearly all, Maru confirmed. We have been gathering survivors, building a new sanctuary beyond Confederation space. He studied June closely. And you, human, willingly bonded with one of our kind? His name is June, Ara said proudly. He saved me when I was dying. He protected me when hunters came. Maru nodded with respect. Then we owe you a great debt, June of Earth. The young ones of our species are our most precious treasure. Outside, they heard sirens. Confederation security forces were finally responding to the unauthorized ship in Earth's atmosphere. We must leave quickly, Maru said. Come, Ara. Your people await you. Ara turned to June, her eyes filled with conflicting emotions. Through their bond, he felt her joy at finding her people, but also her pain at the thought of leaving him. "I cannot ask you to leave your world," she said softly. June looked around at the warehouse, thinking of his small apartment, his job at the junkyard, the life he had known. Then he looked at Ara and at the stars visible through the open roof beyond the ship. "You don't need to ask," he replied. "Where you go, I go now. We're bonded." "The bond cannot be broken without great pain to both," Maru warned. "If you come with us, your life on Earth is over." Minji suddenly appeared at the warehouse entrance, accompanied by a group of humans and aliens in unmarked clothing, the underground network she had mentioned. "June," she called out, "are you okay?" He went to her quickly, explaining what had happened. When he told her he planned to leave Earth with Ara, tears filled her eyes, but she nodded in understanding. "I always knew you belonged somewhere else," she said, hugging him tightly. "But promise to send messages when you can. Tell me about the stars." "I promise," June said. "And thank you for everything." The sirens grew louder. Maru gestured urgently toward the small craft. June took one last look at Earth, the planet where he had always felt slightly out of place until he found Ara. Then, hand in hand with the alien girl he had saved from the junkyard, he walked up the ramp into the ship. As the craft rose to rejoin the larger vessel, Maru watched the bonded pair with thoughtful eyes. "It begins again," the commander said quietly. "As it always does, with an act of compassion when someone chose to save rather than exploit." The guardianship accelerated smoothly, leaving Earth behind. Standing at a viewport, June and Ara watched, the blue planet shrink in the distance. "Are you sad to leave?" Ara asked through their bond. June smiled, feeling the scales on his arms glow warmly in response to hers. "No," he replied, "I'm finally going home." Above them, countless stars beckoned, with promise as the ship carried them into their shared future.